Welcome to Integro Talks, a podcast series brought to you by Integro Advisors, where we dive into the world of compliance, risk management, and due diligence, and provide you with expert insight and analysis to help you make more informed business decisions. Welcome back to Integro Talks. I'm your host, Alberto Laportilla, founder of Integro Advisors. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening. In 1989, the 7 largest industrialized democracies of the world established the Financial Action Task Force, FATF. FATF led and has been charged with leading the global and coordinated actions to tackle the illicit flow of funds around the world. FATF does essentially 3 things. It researches how money is laundered around the world through analysis of trends and typologies, how terrorism is funded as well. It has created over many years a list of industry best practices and global standards, and promotes those standards through its website, through different reports. And the last thing it does, which is absolutely critical, is that it assesses countries on how they're taking effective action to mitigate the risk and combat money laundering. These assessments of countries and jurisdictions to measure each country's commitment to meeting international best practices is based on 40 recommendations that FATF has come up with. If deficiencies are found during those assessments, the country is placed on a list of jurisdictions under increased monitoring, commonly known as the Grey List. FATF then follows up with the country to request an action plan and measure how the country is addressing those recommendations. The country might stay on that list for some time, and it all depends until FATF has reached an agreement with the country that it has satisfactorily addressed those recommendations. The Republic of Panama was placed on the list in 2019. This was not the first time that Panama has been on the list. It had previously been on the list from 2014 to 2016. Panama has long been an essential part of the international banking sector, attracting investors and companies to establish a presence there. Some of this might be due to the fact that it has a reputation of being the Switzerland of the Americas, previously having been known as a tax haven status and due to its strict bank secrecy laws. FATF found in the assessment of 2018, which led to Panama being listed, that Panama was either non-compliant or only partially compliant in certain areas with respect to those 40 recommendations. It took 4 years, but last October, Panama was removed from the list after a recent FATF assessment, a very important achievement for the country, its reputation, its financial system, giving it more access to credit and making it more attractive to foreign investors. We have invited a very special guest today from Panama to talk about all this, why Panama was first on the list, removed, the back and forth with FATF. Raul Guizado is Vice President of Compliance and Corporate Security for Banco General, the largest and top performing bank in Panama. He's also chairman of the board of directors for the Panama Banking Association. Raul serves as a member of SWIFT's Financial Crime Compliance Advisory Group, representing the Latin American banks. In addition, he was designated by the President of the Republic of Panama in March of 2022 to represent Panama's private sector on the board of directors of the Superintendents of Non-Financial Institutions and Regulated Persons. Raul, welcome to the podcast. Hello.
Hi, thank you, Alberto, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here and share with you the work that our country has done to get out of the FATF Grey List. Like you mentioned, it took us 4 years. This last time, was a joint effort between the public and private sector. But yes, we finally got out of the Grey List on October 27 of last year.
Good. Well, congratulations to you. I know you were very involved in that process. So let's step back and look at a little bit of the history. If you could tell our listeners, 2014, 2016, it was placed on the Grey List. The country, it was removed from the list, and then it went back on 2019. So just give a quick overview of what has occurred over the last 10 years, and then we can bring it more current later on in the interview.
Sure. Okay, in fact, Panama was placed on the FATF Grey List in 2014 because at the time, we were not complying with the legal framework. We did work, again, public and private sector. We worked together to establish the legal framework, and we were able to get out of the Grey List in February of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
However, FATF has increased the bar to say, and now it was looking for effective implementation of the legal framework that was already in place. And this time they were looking, for the country to make sure that it was, again, complying with the legal framework. So if
Right.
you allow me, I'll just
Sure.
a brief, description of how this process has gone through. In fact, like you mentioned, in June of 2019, Panama was included in FATF Grey List for the second time. Since August of 2019, a month later, GAFI-LAT, which is the regional, GAFI group that looks at Panama, issued an enhanced follow-up report on Panama and concluded that the country was making significant progress in addressing the technical compliance deficiencies previously identified. To put it into context, Panama had a technical compliance rating of 95% by complying with 38 out of the 40 FATF recommendations. The deficiencies identified by FATF were related to the lack of an effective implementation of the legal framework already in place. So the country outlined an action plan to address 4 immediate outcomes since July of 2019, including strengthening of the regulatory framework. The focus, nonetheless, was in the effective implementation of the action plan already in place. So it is important to highlight here that the FATF action plan did not address deficiencies in the Panama banking sector or in the financial sector. The focus of the action plan was on strengthening supervision of the non-financial sector, be it lawyers, accountants, real estate developers,
right,
constructors. So that was the main focus, because the banking sector was already compliant with with FATF. We remember that we not only need to, to be competitive, we need to make sure that our correspondent banks in the US and in the world feel comfortable with our standards and controls. So we, the banking sector, have been ahead of the rest, and we have been, really, for example, we have had compliance officers since 2020 by law. The other non-financial sector, it wasn't until 2015 that it required them to have a compliance officer. So again, we, the banking sector, were ahead of the game in that sense.
Right. Let me ask you before you continue, because I'm curious to know. So obviously the first time that Panama was placed on the list was able to get out. What was the big difference between 2014, 16 and the 2019? Was it just those technical issues? I understand that the issue of beneficial ownership was an issue.
It was.
Was that the trigger that put Panama back? The key trigger that put Panama back on the list in 2019 versus
it was probably one of the key points, Alberto, and in fact, we had, as we had COVID in the middle of it, so
right, of course, delays.
That delayed the process. But yes, and I'm going to address those topics that you did mention. So again, given the global, COVID-19 pandemic, FATF basically postponed all evaluations for a period of 4 months. From May to September of 2020, we were off the hook, to say it somehow. And they, because every country was concentrated on keeping its people, safe. So, FATF, gave not only Panama, but, other countries that were in the Grey List, there was a period of 4 months where they were not, expecting any, legislation or action from our part.
Of course.
So anyway, there was some legislation approved and enhanced some legislation approved that was enacted by Panama after we were included in the gray list for the second time in June of 2019. For example, I'm going to name a few, including the one that you referred to about the beneficial ownership registry. There was Law 116 of December 2019, which amends Article 288 of the Criminal Code to eliminate the possibility of repeated tax offenses, thus updating Law 70 of January 2019, which relates to tax evasion. There was something there that FATF did not like, and they wanted us to make some changes, so we as a country did. There was also Law 123 of December 31st, 2019, that added an Article 253, to the Penal Code, criminalizing unlicensed money remitters. There were a number of money remitters in Panama that were not licensed, and FATF was looking at them.
Right.
Another important law that was enacted was Law 124 of January 7, 2020, creating the superintendents of designated non-financial businesses and professions. As you mentioned during your introduction, I was designated by the executive branch and approved by Congress, by the National Assembly here in Panama, to represent the private sector in the board of directors of this entity, and I've been a member of that board since March of 2022. I have to tell you that I have no connections with the executive branch, but the private sector proposed that I be a member of it based on the experience that I have accumulated throughout more than 20 years being the compliance officer of the largest bank, not only in Panama, but also in Central America.
Right.
So without knowing or having any contacts, because to me, I wasn't looking, for that position, to be honest. But they nominated me, and I accepted, and I am glad I did, because I think that I was able to provide the private sector view into the next law that was created, and that really relates to your specific questions. Law 129 of March 17, 2020 created the Registry of Beneficial Owners of Legal Entities. This will facilitate access to information about the ultimate beneficial owners of legal entities established by attorneys who provide resident agent services to locals and foreign customers. So, right. So again, I have to tell you that I enjoy the meetings of these superintendency where I sit in the board with the Ministry of Finance and Treasury of Panama. He is the chairman of the board of that superintendencia, and he has been actively involved along with the superintendent in dealings with FATF, and this entity has been instrumental in getting Panama out of the gray list, because again, the focus was on the non-financial sector. So it was this entity, the superintendents of non-financial entities, that needed to address those issues raised by FATF. And in fact, I would say that the most important thing was creating this registry of beneficial owners.
Right.
So now, when somebody has some other country has a question or an inquiry, they can find the information that they're looking for.
And let me ask you, so while you say yes, that this was specific, when you read through it and you peel the onion of this 2019 listing, that it was really related to the non-financial sector, but in general, it does have an impact. It put a somewhat of a I don't know, a blemish on Panama in general. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw from 2018, 2019, the impact that Panama getting back on the list in 2019, what impact, real tangible impact, did it have on either the economy, putting aside COVID, obviously, because COVID, affected the global economy, but did the listing of Panama back in 2019 have a significant impact in terms of foreign investment, in terms of financial capital flows, and on Panama's economy?
Yes, I would say, Alberto, that it did.
Yeah.
Because we were not receiving foreign direct investment as we used to.
Right.
In addition to that, even some banking institutions that from foreign countries were thinking about leaving the country, because they said, hey, to me is difficult to operate in a country where you're not complying as a country with the international standards. So
right.
Again, it did slow down foreign direct investment in Panama, and it put a blemish on the image of the country. So we were trying to do whatever it took to get us out of the Grey List. Unfortunately, we were successful in doing that. So
Right.
I mean, just so that in addition to those 4 laws that were enacted to make sure that we were complying with the legal framework expected by FATF, this is so important. The national risk assessment was updated and published. It now covers relevant threats, vulnerabilities, and the country's mitigation measures for terrorist financing. And that was in response to immediate outcome number 1. Let me say that the first time the country did the national risk assessment, as a country, we decided to say that terrorism was not an issue because we were geographically far away from all the terrorist groups. But FATF came back and said, hey, you might be somehow, you could be facilitating financing of terrorist groups, because you have an international free zone in Colón. So you have to take a look at that. So we went back and we did revise that national risk assessment and have taken the mitigation measures to make sure that we now have full control of those flows of funds that might be going out to some terrorist groups. So again, that was also an important point.
Yeah, that's critical. I think Panama, just historically, just because of its again, I think Panama has for many, many years been an important piece of the international banking sector in not just in Latin America, but globally. I mean, there are a lot of foreign banks and foreign companies and foreign investors and a lot of capital flowing in and out of Panama. So I'm not surprised that FATF came back and said, you need to look at terrorist financing, because it's not just, it's regardless of geographies,
Exactly.
the funding of terrorist financing and basically the illicit flow of funds is flowing through banks all over the world. And I'm sure Panama has taken steps to address those risks.
And we did, yes. And then with respect to the regulatory inspections on AML and CFT matters, I mean, the sanctions process and effectiveness was also revised, Alberto, in response to immediate outcome number 3. Law 23 of 2015 basically had the maximum amount of the sanctions for money laundering established at $1 million, and FATF wanted the country to raise that up to 5 million. So we did.
Okay.
Although it was not easy, right. We did, and now the fine could be as large as $5 million for not having adequate controls for prevention of money laundering. So that's another important step that we did. And as mentioned before, the ultimate beneficial owners information and verification by registered agents is now required by law, and that's in response to immediate outcome number 5 of FATF. So a number of things have been done, Panama also reviewed and updated Law 52 of 2016,
Mhm.
which is the requirement for all legal entities established in Panama to have accounting records available to the authorities for exchange of information when required by another country. So now, if we do get a request from any country that we have, that we have a bipartisan agreement, I mean, we have to provide the information. Period.
Right.
I mean, even if the corporation was established in Panama and does not operate in Panama, but is operating, let's say, in France or Germany, and there is a question by the authorities from those countries, they can come to us and say, hey, give me information about the beneficial owners, and we have to do that. So again, we are a lot more transparent now than we used to be. This is the trend all over the world. I mean, this is now you're looking more at transparency rather than than hiding things. I mean, now we have to come across as a serious country and help in these international investigations. So Panama also reviewed and updated Law 23 of 2015, which I mentioned before, which is the prevention of money laundering and terrorist financing, to increase the monetary sanctions imposed to those that break the law. And I said from $1 million to $5 million is the maximum penalty now. And also to extend the obligations to designated non-financial businesses and professions. Before, it was only the financial sector. Now, I mean, again, we have lawyers, accountants, we have
real estate,
construction companies,
right?
Companies operating out of the Colón Free Trade Zone, which, as you know, we have the second largest free trade zone in the world after Hong Kong. So they now have to have compliance officers. And for example, the customers that we as banks have in the free zone, we go and visit them to make sure that they have their compliance manuals. That we sit and talk to their compliance officers.
Yeah.
So they have to have a complete compliance program that includes annual formal capacitación or
training
to their employees. So I mean, we need to create awareness of all of this.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you that, and I'm glad you addressed it, because you were in your position as the chief compliance officer of the largest bank in Panama and the largest bank in Central America. It's a very important bank, Banco General. You have a lot of customers, and so what steps has your bank in your position taken to ensure that those non-financial clients have the necessary compliance standards in accordance with the new requirements? Because obviously you want to make sure from a risk management standpoint that your institution is protected. But it sounds like you're doing your assessments, your visits, you're ensuring that they have compliance manuals, you're ensuring that they have training, you're ensuring that, in some cases they have compliance officers that have the mandate to make sure that compliance controls are properly managed. So it sounds like you've been doing that since.
We have been doing that. We Alberto conduct periodic visits to some of these customers that are in this under the supervision of these Superintendencia de Sujetos No Financieros or
non-financial. Yep.
Yes, we do that and make sure that that they are doing what they are supposed to do. So before the relationship was only between our business units and them. Now we go and accompany our business units in this field visits once in a while to make sure that we sit with them and ask the questions that we need to ask, and then we write a memo for the record that goes into the file about our findings. So yes, we have I would say increase our scrutiny over this sector of customers of ours.
Yeah.
So also of importance to mention, with the amendment of Law 23, we enacted law 254 of November 2021, and now this law prevents the misuse of nominee directors in legal entities established in Panama. Each resident agent is required to create and maintain a standard procedure document for the management of nominee arrangement services. So again, it used to be very common for a law firm to create, companies, and instead of putting as directors, the real owners or the executives of the companies, they would use nominee
lawyers,
directors,
nominee directors, of course, yeah.
And so now we have, this law. Again, it is still legal to use nominee directors, but we need to have some controls. And at the end, we will find out. For example, at our bank and at any other banks in Panama, you would not be able to open up an account if I don't have full disclosure of who the owners are. So that's important to mention.
Yeah, that's a very critical point, because if you go back in the history of Panama, actually recent history, with the whole issue related to the Panama Papers, where it was leaked that companies were being established there, and the true owners, which were not available publicly, were now disclosed, and that also put a bit of a stain on Panama's reputation. But it seems like Panama is now, obviously, having been listed and delisted twice in the last 10 years, is taking the necessary steps to focus more on transparency. As you said, that is the trend. We're seeing it to some degree also in Switzerland, where Swiss banks have been impacted by issues that required them to open up to some degree their institutions to global scrutiny. So just from a technical standpoint, can you talk a little bit about what's next in terms of the FATF? So does FATF do another assessment? What's next in terms of that? Because I'm assuming there will be some sort of follow-up to ensure, right, that the country continues to move in the right direction.
Okay, well, as you know, for the time being, we're officially out of the Grey List in October of last year.
Right.
It is my understanding that there is no immediate action on the part of FATF to come back and review Panama. What I have been talking about through the banking association is that we have to make sure that we do not go back to this list ever again. So we have to be proactive,
right,
rather than reactive, and we have to make sure that we do whatever it takes as a country. And I think, again, we have demonstrated that we're doing it to not ever go back into this list. We still have some issues. We are still in the European Union's list for deficiencies in money laundering. But I am expecting, Alberto, that in February of this year, we could not get out of that list until we were out of the FATF Grey List.
Right.
So we are expecting, as a country, that next February we're going to be delisted, from that list from the European Union, and we also are in another list of because of tax issues. But again, we're addressing those issues now, and we have been addressing them for the past year. So again, hopefully this year we'll be out of that European Union's tax related list.
Right.
So again, something important to mention is that prior to Panama getting out of the Grey List in October of last year, FATF conducted a on-site visit in Panama during the first week of September of last year. And the FATF evaluation team, which is the Joint Group of the Americas, who reports directly to the International Cooperation Review Group, they conducted an assessment to verify the progress. So, I mean, I remember because I did participate in those meetings, and it was a week long or 4-day meetings that we had, not only the financial sector but all the other sectors of the economy that are supposed to comply with with these issues of prevention of money laundering. And we did very well. I remember that when we finished our meeting of the financial sector, it was 15 representatives from the FATF group from different countries, some the United States, Europe, and some other countries in Latin America. I mean, they came to us at the end, and they were, I would say, happily surprised about the progress that we had made as a country, and they believe what we had done.
Right.
So again, I don't expect to have an immediate follow-up, because they were here in September,
Right,
to make sure that they could convey to the FATF group in October that they had been here and that they had seen and talked to the people that they needed to talk. So again, I'm glad that I had the privilege to be chosen with other colleagues from the financial sector to represent the banking industry in this meeting with the Joint Group of the Americas. And at that time, Alberto, I was representing Banco General, as you know, again, the largest bank in Panama and Central America, as the head of compliance. But I was also representing, the banking industry as the chairman of the board. And I do want to mention something that I think is critical and of importance, because the Banking Association was created in 1962. And so it has 60 years of history. And this is the first time that the head of compliance of a bank is the chairman of the board of the Banking Association. Prior to that, he had always been the CEO, the maximum executive of a bank. So
Sure.
I think we're sending a message to the international community that, compliance is gaining importance. I have to say that I had been in that board of directors for 16 years, but again, now I am the chairman of the board. So,
Yep.
and this is the first time that this had happened in the 60-year history of the Banking Association, where the CEOs were always, that somebody who was a CEO of a bank used to, be the chairman of the board. I think we're sending a message to the international community that we are really committed, with compliance, and with the increased importance of compliance, all over the world. So
yeah, congratulations on that, and being the first. You're the to head up as a compliance officer the Banking Association. I think that's a great step forward for the country, for the financial sector, and for you personally and professionally. So congratulations on that nomination.
thank you.
So good. So I think and then I guess lastly, what you said, well, the most important thing is we need to avoid getting back on that list. So you're looking forward. So do you envision any other steps that the country will take, either legislatively or the financial sector will take to demonstrate that proactive approach? Do you envision anything in the coming years, or do you feel, because I understand there's probably some areas where you could tweak, you can always improve, as you know, as a compliance officer. The world of compliance is and the world of risk is very dynamic, and risks change and trends happen, and so. But do you envision anything in the coming, say, 12 to 18 months of a proactive step that Panama will continue to take, or do you feel we are in a good place and let's just go from here?
Okay, I think, Alberto, that we're in a good place, but we have to keep looking at the trends.
Right.
Again, for example, we do pay a lot of attention to recommendations that we have from our correspondent banks.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is that, at least in the banking sector, we not only comply with the local regulations, but we have also somehow a different regulator, because if we want to do international business, we have to comply with the best practices.
Sure.
And those best practices come to us from the correspondent banks, and we have meetings with them at least once a year. We have our KYC review of the bank.
Right.
And whenever they have recommendations, we look into them and we, pay attention to them. An example of that is that, we hired your firm, Integro Advisors, last year because we wanted to have our board of directors at the highest level informed of the sanctions. So again, we're looking always at the trends, and we want to make sure that everyone at our bank, from the board to from the bottom, are aware of all the things that need to be done to prevent money laundering and terrorist financing. So this is a never-ending story. We have to look at trends and continue to stay updated.
Right. And I think not only from your position as the head of the banking association, or the chair of the banking association, it's sort of not only that position that you just mentioned, but also that position being something that's addressed by the entire sector, because you want everyone to be compliant, not only financial but non-financial organizations, because it's so delicate that it takes one bad apple and it could spoil and unfortunately blemish the reputation of an entire sector unfairly, but that's how the world is. And so I think if everyone is on board and committed, I think Panama will continue to move forward and continue to be a thriving destination for foreign investment. So congratulations. So before we wrap up, because we're just about out of time, I always finish every podcast with a non subject question, and it's kind of a curveball. So
okay.
and it's always related to music. And the reason why I always ask a question about music is I'm a enthusiastic fan of music, all kinds of music. I've written about music. I've taught my kids all about music. So because we're talking about Panama today, and because you're from Panama, I want to talk about probably the most iconic Panamanian music artist in the last I would say 30-40 years, and that is Rubén Blades.
Mm-hmm.
So Rubén Blades is just an icon in all of the Americas in terms of Latin jazz, salsa music, mixing in different types of genres, cumbia as well. I think Rubén's mother was Cuban and his father was Colombian, so he has that influence that influenced his music. So Rubén, over the years, has collaborated with some of the most famous artists, Julio Iglesias, Shakira, I think Michael Jackson even at some point, and Elvis Costello, which coincidentally Elvis Costello is in concert this month in Miami, and I'm going to go and attend that concert. But
Good.
Do you have any special memories or special anecdotes that you can share about Rubén Blades?
Well, I mean, just so that you probably know it, but he's an interesting and very intelligent person. He's a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, after graduating from law school in Panama, he even attended Harvard for a master's in law. But his passion for music was what led him to do whatever he wanted to do. I don't know if you're aware that he even ran for president of the country years ago.
Yes.
He created a political party. The name of the party was Papaya Goro, and he didn't reach of course the presidency, but he served in the cabinet of President Martin Torrijos from 2004 to 2009 as director of tourism in Panama. So again, a very successful person, still very influent in Panama and in politics. And when he speaks, people pays attention to him because he's a very not only articulate but very smart guy. Very multifaceted. He knows versatile. I mean, he
Yeah.
is not only music, but also has some other intellect that there's much to be learned from him.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any other artists in Panama that you are fond of? Are you more of the
Well,
classic? Or anyway, go ahead.
you probably hear of Omar Alfano. Omar Alfano is a
Okay.
composer who
Yeah.
has composed music. Look him up. He
I
has
will.
composed for a number of people like Mark Anthony
Okay.
and Willie Colon,
So salsa
uh,
music.
salsa music. Omar
Okay.
Alfano, look him up. And
Yeah.
also Erika Ender. Erika Ender, Suavecito. I mean,
Okay.
she's also from Panama. She's probably best known for having gone out with Floyd Mayweather for a little
Oh,
while,
the boxer.
the boxer. But
Yeah.
yeah, but she's, in terms of the music I like, I'm very different from most people. I usually listen to baladas. I like one particular Italian composer. His name is Claudio Baglioni
Okay.
from the 1970s. He's
Wow.
still yes, most of his music is from the 1970s, but he's still giving tours. He was born in 1951, so he's still, I mean, a relatively, young guy, 72 years old.
Hmm.
But his music and from the 1970s, early 70s and mid 70s is what I like to hear. My wife always tells me, I don't know, where you got that, taste from, but anyway, that's the music I like.
Good, good, good. Well, thank you for that. I will look that up, that Italian composer,
Claudio
because
Baglioni, yes.
I will definitely look him up. So, but anyway, so with that, I want to thank you for your time, Raul. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for sharing all that you did today on for the audience in terms of Panama, and then a little bit on your taste in music. That was very interesting towards the end. So and thank you all for once again listening and watching. If you like what you heard today, please remember to subscribe below on the link below, and we'll see you next time on the at the next podcast. So thank you very much. And Raul, once again, thank you for your time.
Thank you for the invitation. It was a pleasure to be here, Alberto.
Thank you.